Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Joseph Hammer, and in this video I will be teaching you how to create from scratch a Qualtrics survey that includes the Mental Help Seeking Attitudes scale and the Mental Help Seeking Intention scale. Now of course, if you're creating a survey, you may not be using both instruments, though in many cases if you're seeking to use the theory of planned behavior to guide your study, I do recommend including both of these instruments. You will be able to create surveys with one or both of these instruments. So let me show you how you can do it. So first of all, you open up Qualtrics. You can see some existing surveys I have here. You go to Create Project. You do Blank Survey Project, and we'll say, let's create the Mental Help Seeking Attitudes scale first. We'll just call it MHSAS Test. Create project. It will open up the blank survey, and so this is what we see. Close that. Site title of the survey here, it starts with our default question block, which has whatever we want to put in it, and then it gives us a sample item that it started us with, which it just gave the name Q1. Now what we'll be working from is this document that's available for download from my MHSAS webpage, and this is the Mental Help Seeking Attitude Scale, the copy of it in Microsoft Word. So download the doc versions of the Microsoft document version, and you can do some copying and pasting of the stuff from this document into the Qualtrics survey. So first what we want to do is we're going to be putting the instructions up at the top. So I go on that and I copy it, or you can click Control-C to copy this instruction text. We go back here, and what we do is we have this selected. We don't want a multiple choice type. It's more elegant to use a matrix type standard question. So we're going to click on that, and then we're going to want 9 statements because there are 9 items, so we'll put those in there. It's going to be 7 scale points because that's the ordinal scale that it uses, and then we're going to switch it over to matrix type bipolar so that it looks like that. And we are going to have labels for each of the scale points, so we're going to create 7 labels to match the 7 scale points. And so let's see if we can squeeze these together. I'll move this guy over a little bit. Okay, so what we do is let's start by putting the instructions over here. So the question text, just Control-V to paste in there. And then it's like that. If you want to clean up the formatting, you can always click Remove Formatting and then do some Control-B if you want to put it in bold or whatnot. Okay, so we have our instructions there at the top. Now we need to do the labels, and that will be 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. So 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. And it's having a little trouble. I've been misclicking a bit. So let's see, 3, 2. I need to nurse it a bit. Why is it having such trouble? 3, 2, 1. Okay, it's working a little bit better. 0. Okay. And then 1. Okay, does that look correct? 7 labels with 7 scale points. Okay, so it should go 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. So that 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Alright, so that looks good. Sometimes Qualtrics can be a little finicky. Oh, and forgot to have this last part of the instructions included at the bottom. So we need to fix that. So let's copy all of that, go back here. Okay, so now we've got that bolded bottom part there, and let's make this instructions guy bold there. Okay, so we've got that. So it's coming together. Now we need to add the labels on the left and right hand side for each. And remember, some of these are reverse scored. So we're going to have the positively balanced terms sometimes on the right and sometimes on the left. So let's start with useless and then useful. So the useless will be on the left and useful will be on the right. Useless on the left, useful on the right. What's next? Important, unimportant. So in this case, the positively balanced term is on the left because this will be reverse scored so that we can create a proper mean. And this is just to help people respond carefully to the items. Unhealthy on the left, healthy on the right. Unhealthy, can't spell, healthy. Ineffective, effective. Ineffective, effective. Good and bad. So this is another item that will be reverse scored. Healing and hurting. Healing, hurting. Disempowering and empowering. Disempowering and empowering. Satisfying and unsatisfying. Let's do some copying and pasting. Go. Desirable and then undesirable. Desirable, undesirable. Okay, and so like that, we have created the MHSAS. I personally like to change the name of the question so that when you download the SPSS file, it will look a little cleaner in terms of the names of the variables. So we just called that MHSAS now. So we've got the instructions, 1, 2, 3 paragraphs with this one bold because this is the key item stem. We've got our 9 items which are bipolar, so they have a term on the left, a term on the right. We add these numbers above the 7 circles to let people get a sense of more versus less of something. We can't say put -3 over here and +3 on this side because remember some of these items are reverse code. Sometimes the positive side of it is on the left rather than always being on the right. That's why we can't make this a +3 and this a -3, even though that would be a little more intuitive. And again, these bipolar type attitudes items are what are recommended typically by theory of planned behavior scholars and those who suggest creating instruments for attitudes. They tend to use bipolar items. So that is why we follow this format rather than the typical Likert type format. So we've created the MHSAS, and I did say that I was going to put both the MHSAS and the MHSIS in the same instrument. So I'll change the title of this survey to reflect that, MHSAS and MHSIS. Okay, so now we're going to create the MHSAS. So for this, we'll be using multiple items to do that. So we'll create a new question right below this, and if we wanted, we could click on the above question and then insert a page break, add page break below if we wanted to kind of keep them on different pages. It's your prerogative. And let's pull up the, so that's the mental health attitude scale. We're done with that. And then the mental health intention scale. Now we've got this. So it's a little bit different format. It uses more of a traditional Likert. The instructions block will be its own item in the survey with just instructions. So we're going to copy and paste this initial block. Now, one of the things you can do is you'll notice that this instructions block, this paragraph mimics the paragraph about definitions from the MHSAS, right? You can see that paragraph already up here. So if you have the MHSAS first and then the MHSIS below it on the same page, so if we got rid of this page break, we wouldn't need this instruction test because they already know from this instruction stuff up here how we've defined these terms like mental health professional. And so when they get to the mental health seeking intention scale, they'd see the mental health professional language and mental health concern language and already know because it was defined in the MHSAS. But if you want to be cautious, or if you have the instruments on separate pages, or you're only using one of them, then do make sure to have the instructions about how we define the terms at the top. So since we're going to have them on separate pages with this page break, we're going to go ahead and make sure these instructions do indeed exist right next to the items for the MHSAS. So we'll remove the formatting of that, bold that just to make it pop a little bit, and then we don't want this instruction text to have items. We want this to be descriptive text type. So we change it to descriptive text, so it's just descriptive text up top, and then we're going to create 3 Qualtrics questions below it. So 1, 2, 3, and we're going to turn these into our items. But what I'll do to keep it a little simpler, let's remove that second one. We'll just start with this. We'll format the first item the way we like, and then we'll use the copy question command to make our lives a little easier. So what is the first item after they have read these instructions? So it's this sentence here, I would intend. So let's go in here, we pop that in here, remove formatting to make sure it's nice and clean. It automatically tried to pop in stuff. Sometimes that's helpful. In this case it's not, because we're using a 7-point Likert that's numbered 1 to 7, and it has labels only on the lower end and on the upper end. And unlike the MHSAS, the MHSIS has no reverse scored items. So extremely likely, definitely true, strongly agree. None of these have to be reverse scored, so we can just create a mean score right off from it. So that keeps things a little bit simpler in terms of the labeling. But so you'll see we got 1 extremely unlikely, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 extremely likely. So watch how I create this here. So first, you know, Qualtrics is trying to be helpful in saying, oh, let me put in some automatic choices, but we want to turn that off. We do indeed want 7 choices, that is correct, but unless you're having problems with it showing properly on mobile, which may be the case, in which case you can go with vertical. I tend to prefer horizontal. I think it's a little more elegant looking in most cases, especially if people are completing it on a computer. I like having it across like this, so that's clicking horizontal for position is better. So let's, the first one, 1 extremely unlikely. Okay, it's looking good. So this is just 2. This is just 3. Up, see, it's learning a little bit. 4, 5, 6, and then 7 extremely likely. So higher score on this item corresponds with greater or stronger intention to seek help, to intend to seek help. So there we go. You can see this is a little grayed out because it knew we wanted to put in a 3 in there, and so it supplied it for us. Sometimes Qualtrics is really good about that, sometimes it's not so good about that. But anyways, we've created our first of 3 MHSIS items, see 1, 2, 3. And so what we can do after creating this first one is we go to copy question. So it will copy this and pop it down here. So we got another one there, and then let's do this once more. So now this looks good, I would intend, but these two we now have to customize to match the second and the third question. So the I would try item, we've got that text here, so let's pop that in. Control A to select all, Control V to pop it in, remove formatting just to make sure it's clean. Double click to highlight the line, Control C to copy, Control A to grab everything, Control V to paste it in, click out to have it save. And that's another thing, when you've edited an item, you got to click somewhere else in the survey to tell Qualtrics to save what you've done. So I would intend, I would try, I would plan, right? I would intend, I would try, I would plan. Okay, looks great. So the 3 items are there. Now, just like we did for the MHSAS, I like to label these things. So I'll change this to MHSIS instruct for instructions. So we know we can delete that variable once it's downloaded as SPSS. MHSIS_1. MHSIS_2. MHSIS_3. And by the way, this labeling will make it much easier to use the free syntax that I've provided for both this and this. It becomes easier to use the free syntax I've provided, because when you download the data files, the variable names will be what you need when you want to use the syntax, and will require minimal adjustment. So I believe we're finished. So we've got the MHSAS up top. Again, it was a single matrix typed question with boilerplate text, 3 paragraphs worth, and then these 9 bipolar items on a 7-point bipolar scale, not a Likert. And then on this next page, we had the boilerplate instructions for the MHSIS, and then 3 different items. So we had this first one was descriptive text, right? Text, it's called text/graphic, so descriptive text, and then these 3 were multiple choice, but put on a horizontal format rather than vertical. And then, oh, I almost forgot, I didn't change the Likert labels for number 2 and 3. So extremely unlikely to extremely likely is good for this first one, but we've got to change this to definitely false to definitely true, strongly agree to strongly disagree to strongly agree. So let's do that. And this is why you've got to proofread everything you do, right? Definitely false. And definitely true. And then this is strongly disagree. Strongly disagree. Strongly agree. Okay. So those are fixed now. So all items have the correct, and that's something that can throw you off. If you're going a little too fast, like I was, you might have the 3 item stems in there, but then forget to customize the labels for the 1 and the 7 on items 2 and 3. So I'm glad I caught that. So this is how it looks down there. So let's preview it and see how it might look to someone when they access the survey. Okay, so on the left is how it looks for computers, on the right is how it can look on cell phones. So we'll start with how it looks on laptops or personal computers. So there's the instructions for the MHSAS and the prompt, and then you can see that people can respond by selecting closer towards one term or the other along the bipolar scale. So very useless, somewhat useless, a little useless, neutral or in between, somewhat useful, moderately useful, strongly useful, that sort of thing. So that's what their responses are looking like, so they fill it out. Let's go to the next page where our MHSIS lives. So here's the boilerplate text, the prompt, and then you can select any of these things from extremely unlikely to extremely likely, item 2 and item 4, and that's it. Okay, so response has been recorded. Now, of course, there's a lot of things you can customize when it comes to this. You can customize the look and feel, which might be dictated by your institution, but you can change the button text, and I do always recommend having a progress bar to help people understand how far they are in your survey. So we'll do that. In terms of survey flow, if it's a complex survey, you might be messing with survey flow, but sometimes you don't have to. For survey options, you always want to check these out. Save and continue is usually a good idea. Back buttons sometimes can be a bad or good idea depending on your study design. For your survey title, I always recommend naming it something appropriate and innocuous. Usually it's open access. Password protection is rare, but you might be using it if you're giving password protection to people. If you're giving passwords to people you want to take the survey in advance. Prevent ballot box stuffing only works if you can be absolutely positive that multiple people will not be using the same computer. So if you're going to have students who might be, a few students who might be taking the survey who both are in the same computer lab, maybe use the same computer, then one of them might get blocked because the person on the computer before already took the survey. So you got to be careful with this, but if you're doing online surveys, this can be a good thing. A lot of times redirecting to an appropriate website can be a good idea, or sometimes showing a response summary may or may not be appropriate. These are some of the options I think about. And we don't have to talk about tools or collaborate, but that's an example of how this looks. Let's give it some more fake data, and I'll show you how it looks when we download it. So we'll do the first half on the right and the first half and the next half on the left. Okay. And then we'll do these like these and say OK to submit our responses. All right. So the response is submitted, and so when we go to data and analysis, we can see that there are 2 recorded responses. So the one I did initially when we were going through it, and this one I did next, or rather this is the one I did second, this is the one I did first. So you can look at brief summary here, but of course we go to export data, and depending on what you use, you might be downloading it as a CSV, or if you can, SPSS is a little more elegant, so you download it as an SPSS file, and I will show you how this looks when we open up the SPSS file. So it looks like it's downloaded this survey with its 2 responses, its 2 fake responses, and so SPSS will take its sweet time and open up. Okay, so what do we got here? So we've got start date and end date. IP address is not being collected by default. They both completed 100% of the survey, how many seconds it took them to do it, whether they finished or not, the date on which the response was recorded, the unique response ID. These variables are not collected in this case. English, and then we can see the items here. So let's make these a little bit wider. Okay, so we can see our responses. So for our most recent responses, in this case, we can see for the 9 MHSAS items. So for the first time we took it, and then the second time we took it, as you recall, we were picking the things on the far left the whole time, 7, 7, 7, 7, and then on the far left for the next 4, 1, 1, 1, and then we did 7 on the right, 4 in the middle, and 1 on the left for the MHSIS items. So this is the format that it comes out as. From my website, you can download Syntax to score both of these instruments. So if you open it up here, you can see that we can use Syntax to do things like creating reverse scored versions of the items, which populate at the end of the document here, formatting them correctly, creating a mean score for the MHSAS, cleaning up the labels, other housekeeping things. What else? Doing a reliability analysis on the items, looking at descriptive statistics for the items. So I have a syntax file for the MHSAS as well as a syntax file for the MHSIS. So after downloading the data set, if you downloaded it in this format, then you can use the SPSS syntax to easily create a mean score for both of the instruments. Though I will say that it's important to be careful about missing data. The mean command that I have incorporated into the SPSS file will try and create a mean score regardless of how much missing data is there. So you may want to adjust the syntax so that it only creates a mean score if a critical mass, say 80% of the items have their scores intact. But everybody has different ways of handling missing data. Just make sure you do so intentionally. Don't just blindly use the syntax that I've provided. But that's an example of how when you download the data from creating a survey like this, how it can look. And I created an MHSAS and MHSIS already prior to this. So if we look at the MHSAS survey that just has it, we can see that it looks the same as the one we created. So we've got it right here by itself, and you're able to I've created a QSF file by downloading the survey into a QSF file that you can then re-upload into your Qualtrics survey, and it will populate a new survey with this, in this case, the MHSAS already set up. So for on the MHSAS page and on the MHSIS web page of my website, on both web pages there are QSF files for each that you could use to create a survey by importing the respective instrument into a Qualtrics survey. So play around with the resources that I have. It may help make your life easier in terms of building a survey around the instrument. What else? So we had the MHSAS and then the MHSIS. We can see it looks just like how we had it set up before. So that is my tutorial video on creating a copy of the MHSAS or MHSIS within a survey. Of course, for many of you, you're not just doing a survey with one or both of these instruments. You're including one of these instruments or both of them alongside other instruments. So it's a part of a larger survey where at the top of the survey you've got informed consent text. At the bottom of the survey you have conclusion text. It can, of course, be a lot more complex. So these instruments may only be one part of a larger survey, but of course everybody's situation is different. So thank you very much for coming along with me on this. Thank you for considering the use of the mental help seeking intention scale and or the mental help seeking attitude scale. And I hope this video was helpful, and if you have questions about implementation of either of these instruments, feel free to email me and I can help you with those questions. And good luck studying help seeking. Thanks.